Have you ever felt like your own children are ignoring you? Like the people you raised, the ones you sacrificed for, now treat you like an afterthought? You gave them love. You gave them time. You gave them everything. But now, they barely call. They barely visit. And when they do, it feels forced. Where did things go wrong? This painful reality is something millions of parents face as they grow older. But here's the truth, getting angry won't fix it. Feeling sad won't fix it. The good news? There are powerful ways to regain their respect, restore your dignity, and, most importantly, find peace within yourself. In today's video, I'm going to reveal 8 life-changing strategies that have helped countless parents rebuild lost connections. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to handle this situation with wisdom, confidence, and grace. And trust me, the last strategy might completely change how you think about your relationship with your children. So stay with me. Now, let's start with the real reason children become distant as they grow older. Why do children grow distant? As parents, we often wonder, why did my child change? They used to call. They used to visit. They used to need me. But now, it feels like they've drifted away. The truth is, this distance isn't always because of a lack of love. It's a natural part of life. 1. Priorities shift with time. When children grow up, they step into new roles, spouses, parents, professionals. Their world expands beyond the home they grew up in. Career pressure, long work hours, deadlines, and responsibilities drain their energy. Even if they want to call, they may feel too exhausted at the end of the day. Raising their own family, once they become parents, their focus shifts to their children. It's not that they don't care about you, it's that their energy is now divided. Daily stress and responsibilities, managing finances, maintaining a household, handling personal struggles, it all adds up. And sometimes, reaching out to parents takes a back seat. 2. The comfort of knowing you're always there. Many adult children take their parents for granted, not out of disrespect, but out of assumption. They think, Mom and Dad will always be there. I'll call them next week. They understand I'm busy. This assumption leads to distance. Not because they don't love you, but because they believe you'll always be in their corner, no matter how much time passes. 3. They see you differently now. When children are young, parents are their heroes, the ones who provide, protect, and know everything. But as they grow up, they start seeing you as a person rather than just a parent. They might notice your flaws, remember past mistakes, or feel independent enough to no longer need your guidance the way they once did. For some, this leads to deep appreciation. For others, it creates emotional distance. So, does this mean you should just accept being pushed aside? Not at all. There are powerful ways to reconnect with your children, regain their respect, and build a relationship that feels fulfilling, without forcing or begging for their attention. And it all starts with avoiding the most common mistakes parents make. Common mistakes parents make. When children start growing distant, it's natural for parents to feel hurt, confused, or even frustrated. But here's the hard truth, sometimes, without realizing it, we push them away even further. Let's talk about the 3 biggest mistakes parents make, and what to do instead. 1. Being too controlling. As parents, we've spent decades guiding, protecting, and advising our children. But when they become adults, that guidance can feel more like control. Telling them what to do with their career, parenting, or finances. Constantly questioning their choices. Trying to fix their problems, even when they don't ask for help. The result? They stop sharing their life with you. Because every time they do, they fear judgment, criticism, or unwanted advice. What to do instead? Offer advice only when asked. Show support, not control. Instead of saying, you shouldn't do that, try that sounds challenging, how do you feel about it? Trust them. They may not do things the way you would, but they need to make their own decisions. 2. Constant complaints and negative conversations. Do your calls with your children sound like this? You never call me anymore. Why don't you visit more often? You only remember me when you need something. While these feelings are valid, constantly voicing them creates guilt, not connection. Nobody enjoys conversations that feel like a list of complaints. Instead of bringing them closer, it makes them avoid calls and visits even more. What to do instead? Make your conversations positive and engaging. Ask about their life, share stories, and focus on moments of joy. If you miss them, say it in a way that invites warmth. I love hearing your voice. It makes my day. Celebrate their effort, even if it's small. Instead of saying, "Why do you only call once a month?" say, "I really enjoyed our chat today. It means a lot to me." 3. Unrealistic expectations. Parents often dream of a close, loving family where children always stay involved. But expecting too much can lead to disappointment and frustration. Expecting daily calls or weekly visits. Wanting them to prioritize you over their own life. Hoping they will always need your advice and approval. The reality? They have new responsibilities, relationships, and routines. It doesn't mean they don't love you, it just means their world has expanded. What to do instead? Appreciate the time they do give you. Whether it's a short call, a holiday visit, or a text message, see it as love, not obligation. Give them space to miss you. The more independent and fulfilled you are, the more they'll want to reach out. Lower expectations, but keep high standards for your own happiness. Don't wait for them to make you feel valued. Build a life where you already feel fulfilled. What happens when you change these habits? Meet Robert, 68. He used to call his son every week, asking why he never visited. He would say, "You're always too busy for me." His son, feeling guilty, started avoiding his calls altogether. But one day, Robert changed his approach. He stopped complaining. Instead, he said, "I'm so happy to hear your voice. Tell me something good that happened this week." He also started focusing on his own happiness, joining a senior fitness group and learning photography. The result? His son started calling more often because the calls felt good, not like an obligation. Now that you know the mistakes, what should you do instead? Up next, we'll talk about 8 powerful strategies to rebuild respect, reconnect with your children, and create a fulfilling life, whether they call or not. 8 powerful strategies. 1. Don't react with anger. It's painful when your children become distant. You sacrificed, you cared, you gave them everything, so when they don't call, don't visit, or seem indifferent, it's easy to feel frustrated, rejected, or even betrayed. But here's the hard truth: reacting with anger only pushes them further away. The biggest mistake parents make. Many parents, feeling hurt, react emotionally. They say things like, "You never call me anymore. Do you even care? I raised you, and now you act like I don't exist. All you care about is your own life." While these feelings are valid, this approach doesn't work. Instead of making your children feel closer, it creates guilt, resentment, and avoidance. They don't come back because they want to, they come back out of obligation, or worse, they stop calling altogether. What to do instead? Control your emotions. Instead of reacting with anger, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, is my reaction based on emotion or reality? What do I really want, to express frustration or to reconnect? If I were in their position, how would I feel hearing these words? When you stay calm and respond wisely, you create an environment where your children want to reconnect. Real-life example, Mr. Tanaka's story. Mr. Tanaka, 72, a retired teacher from Japan, used to call his son every week. When his son didn't pick up, he would leave angry messages. "Why don't you answer? Do you even remember you have a father? You only call when you need something." The result? His son started avoiding him completely. But then, Mr. Tanaka made a decision. He stopped calling out of frustration. Instead, he focused on his own life, taking walks, joining a community club, and rediscovering his love for writing. 6 months later, his son called him. "Dad, I've been busy, but I miss you. How have you been?" By removing the pressure, he allowed his son to reach out on his own terms. And that single change repaired their relationship. How to apply this to your own life? Take a deep breath before reacting. Anger is temporary, but words can cause permanent damage. Write down your feelings instead of venting. It helps process emotions without creating conflict. Focus on what you can control, your own happiness. The more fulfilled you are, the more your children will be drawn to you. What's next? If anger isn't the solution, what is? In the next section, we'll talk about how to build a fulfilling, independent life so that your happiness isn't dependent on whether your children call or not. 2. Build an independent, meaningful life. When was the last time you did something just for yourself? Many parents make the mistake of waiting for their children to visit, to call, to make them feel loved and needed. But here's the truth. The more fulfilled and independent you are, the more your children will naturally be drawn to you. The biggest mistake parents make. Some parents, after their children grow up and move out, stop focusing on their own lives. They wait by the phone, hoping for a call. They feel lost without their role as caregivers. They base their happiness entirely on their children's attention. This is not healthy for you or for them. Instead of making your children want to connect more, it can create pressure, guilt, or even avoidance. What to do instead? Create a life you love. The key is not to wait for happiness from your children, create it yourself. Join a community group, a book club, a gardening club, or a volunteer group. Learn something new, painting, playing an instrument, or even starting a small business. Take care of your health, exercise, eat well, and stay active. Meet new people. Strengthening your social circle outside of family keeps you engaged and mentally sharp. Real-life example, Mrs. Elena's story. Mrs. Elena, 72, used to spend her days waiting for her daughter to call. She would sit by the window, feeling lonely and forgotten. One day, she made a decision. She joined an art class. At first, she felt out of place, but soon she fell in love with painting. She stopped waiting for calls and started looking forward to her classes. Then, something unexpected happened. Her daughter noticed how happy she was and asked, "Mom, can I come to class with you?" Instead of chasing after her child's attention, she became a source of inspiration. Her daughter wasn't visiting out of obligation, she was coming because she wanted to. How to apply this to your own life? Find a passion. Ask yourself, what have I always wanted to do but never had time for? Step outside your comfort zone. Join a group, sign up for a class, or start a new hobby. Make your life interesting. When you are engaged in something you love, your children will naturally be curious about what you're up to. What's next? Now that you're building a fulfilling life, the next step is to communicate with your children in a way that draws them closer, without guilt or pressure. Let's talk about that next. 3. Communicate wisely, without guilt or blame. How many times have you wanted to say, "Why don't you ever call me?" Do you even care about your parents anymore? It's understandable to feel hurt when your children seem distant. But here's the hard truth, guilt and blame will push them further away. Instead of drawing them closer, these words make them feel pressured, so they avoid calls altogether. Guilty, but guilt doesn't create genuine connection. Annoyed, feeling like they're being scolded rather than welcomed. If you want to rebuild your connection, the way you communicate is everything. The common mistake parents make. Parents often express their pain in a way that sounds like criticism. "You never call me anymore. Why don't you care about your parents? You only come around when you need something." These phrases don't make them want to call more. Instead, they make them feel like they're failing as children. And when people feel like failures, they avoid the situation completely. What to say instead? Invite, don't guilt. The right words can change everything. Instead of guilt, "You never call me anymore." Say this, "I love hearing from you. It always makes my day." Instead of blame, "Why don't you visit your mother?" Say this, "I'd love to see you sometime soon. Let me know when you're free." Instead of frustration, "You only come when you need something." Say this, "I'm always happy to help, but I also just enjoy catching up with you." These small shifts change the entire tone of your conversation. Instead of making them feel bad, you make them feel valued. And when someone feels appreciated, they want to be around you more. Real-life example, Mr. Peterson's letter. Mr. Peterson, a retired carpenter, hadn't heard from his son, James, in months. At first, he wanted to call and say, Why don't you ever check in? Do you even care about your father anymore? But then he paused. Instead, he wrote a short, heartfelt letter. James, I miss our talks. I hope you're doing well. I want you to know I'm always here if you ever need anything. No pressure, just love. Dad. A few days later, his phone rang. James, moved by the letter, called to say, Dad, I'm sorry I haven't called. Let's catch up soon. From that day on, James called regularly, not out of guilt, but because he wanted to. How to apply this in your life? Pause before speaking. Ask yourself, will these words bring us closer or push them away? Remove guilt and blame. Focus on warmth, not frustration. Make them feel welcome, not guilty. When they call or visit, make it a pleasant experience, not a lecture. Next step, setting boundaries with love. Now that you know how to communicate effectively, let's talk about a crucial skill, setting boundaries so your children respect and value your time. 4. Set boundaries, stop being taken for granted. Have you ever noticed that your children only call when they need something? Mom, can you watch the kids this weekend? Dad, I'm short on rent this month. Can you help? I don't have time to go grocery shopping. Can you pick up a few things for me? At first, you're happy to help. After all, you love them. But over time, you start feeling less like a parent and more like a free service. The common mistake parents make. Many parents never say no because they feel guilty for refusing, want to be needed, fear that saying no will push their children away. But here's what happens when you never set boundaries. Your children only call when they want something. They stop appreciating you because they expect your help. You feel exhausted, frustrated, and unappreciated. The truth is, being a loving parent does not mean being available 24/7. If you want respect, you have to teach them to respect your time. What to do instead? Learn to say no. Instead of dropping everything to babysit, say this, I'd love to spend time with the kids, but I'm busy that day. Maybe another time? Instead of always giving money, say this, I understand you're struggling, but I need to stick to my budget. Instead of doing favors with no appreciation, say this, I'm happy to help when I can, but I'd appreciate a little more notice next time. These responses aren't rude or harsh. They simply teach your children that your time is valuable too. Real-life example, Rosa's story. Rosa, a retired nurse, had a son named Daniel. Daniel only called when he needed something, money, babysitting, errands. One day, Rosa finally decided to say no. When he asked her to babysit last minute, she said, I can't today, but I'd love to plan ahead next time. When he asked for money, she said, I have my own expenses to manage. I know you'll figure it out. At first, Daniel was upset. He even stopped calling for a while. But then something changed. For the first time ever, Daniel called just to check in. Not because he needed something. Not because he felt obligated. But because he genuinely missed his mom. By setting boundaries, Rosa earned her son's respect and improved their relationship. How to apply this in your life? Recognize the pattern. Are they calling for you or for your help? Learn to say no without guilt. Your happiness matters too. Teach them to appreciate you. When you set limits, they start valuing your time. Next step, earning respect without demanding it. Now that you know how to set boundaries, let's talk about how to gain respect by being a role model, not a rule enforcer. Point 5. Becoming a role model for respect. Common mistake. Many parents expect respect from their children without realizing that respect cannot be demanded, it must be earned. Constantly reminding or pressuring children to show respect can backfire, making them feel overwhelmed or distant instead. The right approach. Respect is not something you ask for, it's something you embody. When parents carry themselves with dignity, patience, and kindness, their children naturally follow. Avoid complaining or criticizing your children whenever you see them. Instead, focus on listening more. Always act politely, even when your children don't meet your expectations. Show respect for yourself, Take care of your health, manage your finances wisely, and maintain a positive outlook on life. Real-life example. Lorenzo, a 75-year-old father, once felt hurt as his children became more distant. But instead of nagging or blaming them, he chose to change himself. He focused on his health, maintained a cheerful attitude, and always greeted his children with warmth and patience. At first, they didn't notice. But over time, they started visiting him more, engaging in deeper conversations, and treating him with newfound respect. Lesson learned. Be the kind of person your children naturally admire. When they see you living a happy, confident, and independent life, they will respect you, not out of obligation, but out of genuine admiration. 6. Financial independence to maintain respect. Common mistake. Many parents unknowingly become financially dependent on their children, assuming it's a natural part of aging. While children may feel obligated to help, long-term financial dependence can lead to tension, resentment, and even a loss of respect. The right approach. Financial independence is one of the strongest ways to earn and maintain respect from your children. When they see you managing your own finances responsibly, they will admire your strength rather than see you as a burden. Plan for your future. Make sure your savings, pensions, and investments are in order so you don't have to rely on your children. Live within your means. Downsizing or adjusting your lifestyle to match your financial situation is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. Avoid unnecessary financial favors. Lending money to children repeatedly or relying on them for daily expenses can strain relationships. Real-life example. Mr. Carter, a retired engineer, made sure he remained financially independent. He never asked his children for financial help, even during tough times. Over the years, his smart financial decisions allowed him to live comfortably without burdening his family. Eventually, the roles reversed. His son, struggling with his own finances, turned to him for advice. Lesson learned. When parents are financially independent, they are seen as wise and self-sufficient rather than as a responsibility. Financial stability gives you freedom, control, and, most importantly, lasting respect from your children. 7. Learn to forgive, but never forget your own worth. The power of forgiveness. As parents, it's easy to hold onto the pain when children become distant or disrespectful. But carrying resentment only harms you, not them. Forgiving your children isn't about excusing their behavior, it's about freeing yourself from bitterness and reclaiming your inner peace. Forgiveness with boundaries. While forgiveness is powerful, it doesn't mean tolerating continued disrespect. You can let go of the past while still setting boundaries for how you expect to be treated. Release the anger. Holding onto resentment only drains your energy. Set clear expectations. Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting bad behavior. Make it known that you deserve respect. Focus on self-worth. Instead of waiting for an apology, invest in yourself and your happiness. Real-life example. Mrs. Evelyn, a retired artist, was deeply hurt when her daughter Claire became distant. At first, she held on to the 8. Expand your social circle. Don't rely solely on your children. Why social connections matter. Many parents unintentionally place all their emotional expectations on their children. But as kids grow up and build their own lives, it's crucial to cultivate friendships and connections outside the family. Studies show that strong social relationships improve mental health, reduce stress, and even increase longevity. How to build a new social life. Join community groups or clubs, book clubs, gardening groups, or senior fitness classes can introduce you to like-minded people. Reconnect with old friends. A simple phone call or message can reignite valuable relationships. Engage in local events. Volunteering, attending workshops, or joining hobby groups can add meaning to your life. Real-life example. Mr. Harold, a retired teacher, used to feel lonely when his children rarely visited. Instead of dwelling on it, he joined a book club at the local library. Week by week, he built new friendships and meaningful conversations. Eventually, he stopped waiting by the phone for his kids to call because he was too busy enjoying his own life. Expanding your social circle isn't about replacing family, it's about ensuring you have fulfilling relationships beyond just your children. Key takeaways. You can't control your children, but you can control yourself. Effective communication is about connection, not pressure. Build a meaningful life for yourself. Happiness shouldn't depend on your children's attention. What's the first strategy you'll try? Will you set boundaries, change your communication style, or focus on personal growth? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If this video gave you valuable insight, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button now. Stay tuned for more powerful wisdom on family, respect, and living your best life.